Well, as I want to be sure that we get to all of the questions this evening, we are going to begin. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to our second Design in Conversation. Our first session was on the theme of listening as it pertains to making and how the act of listening informs and affects individual craft practices in different ways or at different points in the process. And we at the museum are continuing to process the many nuanced topics associated with design and the handmade in tonight's panel. As with the first, we ask that you use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to pose any queries that come to you throughout the course of the evening. So up until now, each of our locally sourced programs have taken our audiences behind the scenes into studios and workplaces with one-on-one interviews between myself and some of the 19 entrepreneurial craftspeople featured in the exhibition. But what happens once the artwork or piece of furniture leaves the woodshop to be sold? In this evolution from concept to fabrication to product or work of art, there enters individuals, art centers, and businesses to both introduce and advocate to a consumer market, designers, artists, and makers. And these are the buyers and the sellers. And I'm so pleased to have with us representatives from some of Pittsburgh's premier handcrafted centric stores. Just as I would have loved to feature many more makers and locally sourced, it would have been equally grand to invite all of the artistic retail outlets in the region to the conversation this evening. But as I see locally sourced being just one of many future celebrations of Pittsburgh's creative community, this too is a kickoff to many more discussions between our institution and galleries and shops that specialize in the locally made. So with us this evening for the kickoff are Samantha Fisher from PG&H, Kelly Sanders from Love Pittsburgh, Trish O'Connell from Contemporary Craft, Casey Droege from Small Mall, and Lori Brazzos from our very own Carnegie Museum of Art store. Thank you all for sitting through those welcome remarks, and more importantly, for sitting down with me tonight. I really do appreciate all of you. Thank you. And I'm actually a transplant to the area. And when I arrived in the summer of 2019, I really got to know Pittsburgh through its maker community. Their pop-up markets were some of the first events I went to, and all of your stores were some of the first shops I patronized as an official Pittsburgher, which for someone who doesn't know anybody in the area, then getting the opportunity to curate a show on local people, while very exciting, both personally and professionally, it was somewhat nerve-wracking in that, again, I didn't know anyone. So the Creative Business Accelerator at Bridgeway Capital that does an amazing job supporting craft businesses, maker enterprises, design build shops, and entrepreneurial artists in Windsor, Pennsylvania, became an invaluable resource to me, serving essentially as the museum's liaison to craft businesses for locally sourced. So Samantha, as the manager of PG&H, the flagship store for the Creative Business Accelerator's roster of regional makers, how do you pick the products and the people that are in your shop?
So really, when we began the store, when we first opened, picking the product was kind of the first thing to be able to drive traffic and get people interested in shopping. And actually, Kelly from Love Pittsburgh really helped us with that, not to put you on the spot. And also the Downtown Pittsburgh Partnership, who took on the store, and managing that also was a huge help. So it really was a big team effort to get people to hear about the store and pick the product and drive traffic there for our initial launch. But now that we've been open for 2 years, picking the people is our primary focus, which was the initial focus of the shop. But again, just trying to get traffic in there at first was our first drive. So picking the people and the product, it really just depends on the maker business and what their mission is, because that's our focus. So we're a little bit different than other retailers. Whenever we're not just picking product just to sell, we're picking the product to help support the maker business. And so there is a process that a maker has to go through to be into our store, which now, for example, you have to listen to an orientation to hear what all the CVA programs offer, and also what our store can offer to see if it's a good fit for them make our business, and then vice versa if the shop thinks you're a good fit for us. So you still have to have a sense of readiness for your product and your business to be on our shelf, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You can have product, maybe you just need a couple of tweaks with design or labeling, and our store gives you the opportunity to be able to make those tweaks and still get your product on the shelf. So, but yeah, because we're so focused on maker businesses, our product selection has a huge variety. And we're adding more and more variety as well, just so we can support more maker businesses. So we've gotten a lot more jewelry in the store, for example, that wasn't there before. A little bit of like handbags and stuff, and we're growing our product too. But yeah, we have such a big, different type of customers that we get in the store as well. So, which makes it really interesting with what sells and what doesn't sell. But yeah.
I also just saw on social media your window displays got a facelift for the holidays, of which one is pictured on the right. When designing locally sourced, I actually wanted the exhibition to have a shop window aesthetic, as I felt that it visually situated our audience into the wholesale setting in which many of these items can be found. How did you decide on your window collaborations? And what about these displays are different from your usual storefront features or groupings?
Yeah, we wanted to have quite a bit of a variety of different types of products that we displayed in the windows. So as you go across Smithfield Street, we kind of took over all those empty spaces on both sides of the shop. And since they were all empty, we were so thankful that we had access to those buildings to expand our store windows. So that was really cool. But as you walk across the sidewalk, you'll see a paper company, and then a plate company, ceramics. As you see in this photo, we have glass plates, and then we have jewelry and clothing. And so again, we just wanted a really big variety, maybe makers that haven't had much exposure and needed that support. This was just an awesome opportunity to be able to get in a storefront, and especially now since a lot of stores, people aren't shopping inside as often, being able to use the windows as people can just feel comfortable walking outside was just a really great opportunity we took advantage of. So yeah, it's great. We're really excited about it.
And you mentioned variety in products, and I know you stock some consumables, soap, coffee, condiments, candles, all of which, we as a museum aren't in a position to include in an exhibition or in our collections, but they're still craft. And for most people are their entry into buying local produce, local honey, local bread, etc. Why do you think shoppers gravitate sometimes towards craft consumables? And why might local home goods sometimes be a harder sell?
Yeah, well, first of all, Pittsburghers love supporting local. They love supporting Pittsburghers. So that's an already, great way to sell, or easier to sell, should I say. And it's just, people love hearing the story of how the goods were made and knowing what they're made from, how the process in which they're made, what they're buying. So because of that, our store, we're so focused on storytelling, which is super important because the challenge of selling locally made is, of course, the expense. They're a little bit more expensive. And so our store, we had a complete new rebrand in the beginning of the year, where we saw it was super important to be able to storytell and talk about how the product was made, who made it, the story of the maker, which really is what sells the product. So as you walk into our store, you'll see a huge banner of a ton of maker faces on it. And then similar to our website, which is a huge directory of makers, as you walk throughout the space, you'll see actual posters that are a story of a maker. So you can read about their story. So the whole shop is storytelling as you walk throughout the space. And then our staff is really trained on each piece when it comes in. And a lot of them have met most of the makers that have made the product. So they can talk about it with customers. And our staff's also makers themselves. So they share that passion and they can talk about the products like really excited to sell it to customers. So there's a lot that goes into selling these goods, and to overcome those challenges of, price point or maybe not understanding the design, be able to really explain to customers what it is.
And I have to know the story behind the decision to share 536 Smithfield with Red Hot Coffee. How did that come about?
Yeah, so that came about when we first opened. We knew there was gonna have to be a reason to drive people to the store and for people to be able to walk on Smithfield Street too. The spot where we're at is a little bit challenging because it was pretty empty. So a lot of people weren't used to walking that way, in their normal daily walk, people who walk downtown. So being able to add a coffee shop to the space really was a great way to initially drive traffic and introduce people to this brand. Which unfortunately now it's closed because of COVID. But I think because we had that initial push and people now know about our store, we are still getting holiday traffic and people are shopping our space. Yeah.
I asked that question specifically because I think it just again speaks to the ingenuity that so many of you have and so many of you are constantly using on a daily basis within your stores. And while it doesn't have a coffee shop on site, sharing linear square footage with other components is part of the creative experience at Contemporary Crafts, where visitors can seamlessly move through gallery, studio, and store, the store of which helps support working artists, but also helps to finance Contemporary Crafts exhibition calendar, which, side note, just goes to show you the breadth of how good shopping local can be. But what other functions, Trish, financial or otherwise, does the store serve within Contemporary Crafts mission?
Yeah, well, we don't charge admission. So the store helps in that way. It also helps in terms of community program. We engage with our community quite a bit, so it helps to support that. In addition to supporting artists and working artists and getting their artwork exposed to a wider audience. And what we also hope is that when people come to visit, if they're looking at a jewelry piece, that they get excited about that. And that might inspire them to take a class and become an artist themselves. So we really kind of consider ourselves kind of a lifestyle brand. We'd love for you to come, take in the exhibition, take a class, buy something at the store, make something in a class, and then art becomes a part of your everyday life.
It's a mission that goes beyond Pittsburgh to include artists from across the United States and the world. How do you manage that range within a Pittsburgh-based contemporary craft store?
Yes, we've been in existence since 1971. Now, of course, I was not born then, but since we've been in business for such a long time, we've established relationships over the years, with artists. Artists reach out to us. We attend craft shows. We also, follow trade journals, craft journals to really get an idea of who some up and coming artists might be. We also have a LEAP award, which is an emerging artist program in which they can apply to be represented, by us, and we market them for over a year, promote them to really get them exposure and introduce them to the consumer marketplace.
That's amazing. And I know all the pieces in your shop and all the programs you just mentioned, they take time, dedication, and hard work. But the shops themselves take time, dedication, and hard work. And you and the rest of Contemporary Craft recently relocated and reopened during a global pandemic. What aspect of literally setting up shop, if you will, required the most time, dedication, or hard work?
I would say, do you know what, it takes a lot of planning. I'll say that in terms of coordinating, getting the work from the artists, and then getting that into our point of sale system. We also made a very concerted effort online. So actually taking photographs and editing them and getting that online, because it's a whole other, retail avenue. That took quite a bit of time too. And the other thing is in terms of store design, once we open, you really need the talent to, to set up the design for the store and the flow, and to make it easier for consumers to, to shop. And so that also takes a lot of time and thought in terms of, that process.
And Lori, as your coworker, I know you put in a lot of hard work beginning in March with the shutdown, as you were faced with the reality of having your physical space encased within a closed museum while still being charged with running a business. Did those circumstances in March shift your business practice? And if so, how?
Well, definitely. I mean, we stepped back and said, how are we going to navigate this new landscape? For how long is it going to last? We didn't at the time have an online store. I run this store at CMOA in addition to 3 others for Carnegie Museums of Pittsburgh. So we have a total of 4 stores, and none of them had an online store presence in March. So we quickly got to work with our IT partners and created a brand new online store. Various stores had online presence in the past, but none of them were ever very good or very successful. And so we had taken them all down at one point across, the years. And it was really, the time was perfect to reestablish something new. And so we built an online store that represents all 4 museums. And so you can shop from one computer screen, all the collections of all 4 museum stores at any time. And it's been really successful. We're very, very happy. It couldn't have come at a better time to get that online presence back up and be in front of our consumers all the time.
You mentioned the online store. We often talk about the ravages of the global pandemic, what it took away, but many artists and businesses have said that COVID-19 gave them something as well, or pushed them in a new direction that they wouldn't have taken otherwise. What, however big or small, did this year give each of you the opportunity to do? And we'll do this in a round robin style with everyone getting the chance to answer. I'll start with Kelly, and then we'll come back to Lori, because Lori just mentioned the online store, so I want to give her a chance to think about another example. And I also still have questions for you, Lori, so you're not getting off that easy. Kelly, kick us off with this topic about opportunity.
Oh yeah, there was definitely a lot of opportunity this year. We kind of started the year off just kind of humbled. And so we did a postcard writing campaign where people could pay $2 and we would write their postcards and send them out into the world. And then $1 of every postcard we donated to a creative artist fund. So it was just really like, how do we, I hate the word pivot because it's so overused, but like what things can we do that we haven't been doing? Because we already had the online website. So that was just kind of like, how do we blow that out even more? We actually did a lot more blog writing. So our team would write more blogs, or like gift guides, or parks to enjoy, just kind of like personal things that we were doing during COVID. So we expanded that, introduced curbside pick up quickly, and then just implementing safety in our store. So we have like 4-person limit, sneeze guards. So we try to make everyone feel comfortable depending on where they're coming from. So you can shop online, you can shop curbside, or you can shop safely in the stores. So those are all the things that we had to change and adjust for this year.
And Casey, what opportunities did you get to explore this year, starting in March?
Yeah, I think for Small Mall, we do a lot of events. We're very event heavy, and those are things like artist talks or sort of mini exhibits. And we needed to pivot, right? Like Kelly said, I hate that word too, but we had to figure out a way to continue showcasing the artists that we work with and engaging our audience in meaningful ways. So we did shift to doing a lot of online talks like most folks. And it was a great opportunity because we normally do those events for free, and we actually started to ask people to pay to attend them. So we did pay what you can, and made it loud and clear that, you know, those funds went directly to supporting our team and the artist who was speaking, and how absolutely necessary that was during this time, which, you know, it's funny because I think a lot of us would agree that most of the artists and craftspeople and makers that we work with might say that it's, you know, it's necessary all the time, really, or it's always a hustle, it's always hard, but people really got it right now, so they were a little more willing and open, and it built a new revenue stream for us, which was great.
And I'm going to use the word that's been overused, but we're pivoting to Samantha. What opportunities did this give PG&H?
So we actually thankfully redesigned our whole website in January, which was, I guess, okay timing for everything to be shut down. But we didn't do an online store, so which was intentional because we wanted to push people to the makers online stores themselves. But we realized this was a great opportunity to create an online store for makers who don't have them. So we actually did put product online for makers, again, like I said, that either don't have an online store or needed the additional support. And then we applied for a grant and got it to be able to do our gift card gift back program. So any gift card that you purchase for a maker business, we match that gift card and to add additional funding and support for those maker businesses. So a lot of exciting stuff that we were pushed or pivoted to do because of COVID.
That's wonderful. Trish, any developments, redesigns at Contemporary Craft? I know it just opened.
Yes.
So what were the opportunities that you took advantage of?
Yeah, much like what has been mentioned, as Lori said, we also did not have a strong online presence at all. So that was first thing to really, open us up geographically. I will say in terms of the classes, we went to online. So we became a little more technology savvy pretty quickly, using Zoom quite a bit. And it's great because even in terms of makers, it kind of makes them more accessible. So which is great. So we did a lot more online, interacting with our community a lot more in terms of newsletters, reaching out to them in terms of social media. So, and also, which has been mentioned in terms of customer service, we could do private appointments for our customers if that made them feel more comfortable, curbside, really making our outside window work for us. So just being more accessible. And I think it's made us, sharper and stronger.
And Lori, it's got to happen. It's got to come back to you. Follow up.
Well, in addition to the online store, which was the major undertaking, we just had a renewed focus on local artisans and makers. We've always represented local makers in the store, but a renewed focus in that it was pretty clear early on that local artists and makers were going to need us and we were going to need them to navigate this pandemic. So that was, a nice thing to come back to in a new and refreshed way. And then locally sourced, of course, just came on at the perfect time to just dovetail right with that renewed focus. And then probably just, we became better communicators and better planners because you have to really think about what it is you need to have at your fingertips to run your business from home most of the time. So, and communication's just enormous, and just, keeping a team motivated and, people heading in the right direction and focusing on the right things was a big, skill set to kind of refresh and buff up.
You mentioned locally sourced. You and Shane Kennedy, the art museum store supervisor, decided for the first time since the store opened in 2014 to do a pop-up shop of some of the producers featured in the exhibition. I sent out a few introductory emails, but you and Shane, of course, sealed the deal on each of the 11 makers now carried in the store. Logistically, what went into that process of forming those relationships and signing agreements?
Well, all of that credit goes to Shane. who's the store buyer manager. And she had some of these relationships already. You know, she keeps relatively close to a lot of the makers that are local. And then there were some new relationships that she built, but she is just really great at planning and then executing her plan. So she took the information, really, Alyssa, that you had and worked it into her plan. I mean, she asked you to send out the initial introductory letters, but then she picked up from there, contacting each of these makers, talking to them about what it is that they were going to submit for the exhibition and how that could translate into the retail environment. You know, ask them to start submitting photographs about what they were considering submitting for retail so that she could call that down to a manageable size and selection. And then just terrific follow through, because you know it takes, you just need to stay on top of people. Everyone is busy. These are extraordinary times, and some people are navigating them better than others. So just to keep following up to make sure that we got everything on time and ready to set the shop and have that coincide with the opening of the exhibition. And really all the credit goes to her, but it's not a small undertaking. When you're dealing with, and we have 11 of the crafters in the exhibition are represented in the retail store. Some of the work just doesn't translate to, you know, to the retail environment, but that's a lot of people to keep wrangled and heading in the right direction and hitting deadlines and so forth, while you are also executing the rest of your holiday plan, plus the new online store and how you're fulfilling orders. So it was a big order, but she did it beautifully.
It's quite a bit of back and forth. And Casey, as an artist-run, woman-owned business, you execute your fair share of agreements, contracts, proposals. Outside of that deluge of paperwork, what are some of the daily realities you face in your mission to strengthen the arts economy in Pittsburgh?
Sure. I think, well, the small mall is part of my larger business, which includes pop-up programming, art consulting services, just sort of a lot of interactions with the public around visual arts in Pittsburgh. And to make all that happen, I need an amazing team of people, and I have this great group of folks, and we, you know, live in the reality of an arts economy in Pittsburgh, which is not very robust. So we're not making a huge amount of money, and for the most part, everybody's working part-time, and we're all doing the best we can to communicate with each other and actually, you know, execute everything smoothly. So one thing that I really focus on is making sure that my team feels really valued, and that they're really, you know, a part of coming up with our ideas, a part of executing things, that they're invested, and, you know, that they feel like they're humans and I treat them like good humans. And we also, you know, then extend that to the artists that we work with, because it's always difficult. It is always a hustle. And Pittsburgh is not a place, it's not a large city with a really big ecosystem. So, you know, we're all in this together. We're all working to make it better, and to, you know, help introduce the public to some really amazing work. And I think we're all invested in it. And so, yeah, a big part of that is just like valuing each other and treating each other really well.
You recently opened a co-curated exhibition with David William entitled Extra Fiber, featuring Noelle Zawinski and Alex Epstein. Congratulations. Both are artists who create compositions by transforming everyday materials. Which of your local projects, past or present, has been most transformative for you in your advocacy for local living Pittsburgh artists?
That's a hard question, Alyssa. So yeah, we do exhibitions, we do a lot of different programming, and they all engage with the public in different ways. I think one thing that really, the core program that built up my entire business is this 6x8 dinner lecture series, and everything grew out of that. And it's really just moments where anybody, anyone from the public can come, buy a ticket, hang out, hear from artists. We all eat food. It's very communal and it's very informal, and it has sort of fed the way that I interact with the public and the way that I talk about art with Pittsburgh, and just trying to make sure that I'm always being accessible and understanding the context of who I'm talking to, what's happening in the city, how is this relevant, and how is what we're doing making the community better as a whole.
Yeah, and just looking at that past slide, 6x8, CSA PG&H Photo Fair, and the project space in Williamsburg that is currently exhibiting Extra Fiber. Amongst all of those socially minded series, where does Small Mall fit in, and when, but most importantly, why did you decide to add that to become the owner of a concept store, in addition to all of the other programming associated with Droege Productions?
My spirit animal is an octopus. I am very much interested in doing a lot of things at once. But we initially, actually, I opened the business with a gallery space downtown with the Cultural Trust. And at the end of that experience, I felt like I wasn't getting the kinds of conversations and engagement from the public that I wanted around art. And I felt that I would have better luck if I actually had more of a retail space, because people generally understand what retail is and they're more comfortable walking into that space, asking questions. Just it's much more informal. It feels there's less pressure, right? So we left our downtown space and moved to Upper Lawrenceville, and I started Small Mall there as a way to share art with Pittsburgh and do it in a really low stakes, informal way. And it's a great way to help artists think about marketing their work too. So even the stuff that they might showcase in our exhibition space in Wilkinsburg isn't necessarily what people are always going to come in and buy. So it helps them think about maybe creating a new arm of their practice where they have sort of lower priced items or editioned items, things that are easier for someone to pop in and buy.
Staying within the store for a moment, I use the term wholesale at the very beginning of this panel. And for those with us tonight who might not know what that means, could you explain that essential partnership that you enter into with artists you carry at Small Mall?
Sure, yeah. So we actually operate on sort of more like a gallery. We do commission. So, artists engage with us for a 3 or 4 month term. We sell their work and we split all the sales 50-50. And then because we're sort of interested in paralleling a gallery experience, we change it often. So about every quarter, we shift most of the artwork out. We bring in new stuff. We repaint, we move everything around, and we make it feel like a new exhibition of work.
Why did you decide to go with the commission format rather than wholesale?
To be totally transparent, it's because we're all broke, right? So it's just a lot easier to start building the business without having to buy inventory. And it also helps to align with that model of transitioning things every quarter. So if we were buying inventory, we would need to store it, and then we need to put it away if we wanted to switch things out. So I felt like we would just continue with the sort of gallery model, which is we have it for a set amount of time, we split the sales 50-50, and then when we're done, we give it back to you, and that's it.
Can I take a survey within the group very quickly? Who operates on the wholesale and who operates on more of a commission system?
We do,
wholesale?
we do the consignment for the same reasons. We, represent over 150 artists, so it's much, easier for us to manage and to navigate. And similarly, we bring in new artwork constantly with major changes quarterly as well. So it's just much easier to, to deal with,
And Alyssa, at the this museum stores, we do a combination of wholesale to retail, commission for some makers, and also royalty-based selling.
Full bag. And I think Kelly was the one, would you say wholesale, or is that Samantha?
Yeah, we do. It's probably 98% wholesale. And then maybe there's sometimes we'll showcase some finer art pieces, and those would be on commission, but we're wholesale, so.
Okay.
And we're consignment for the same reasons as the other ladies had said. We represent over 100 artists in our network. So not only is it, because of finances, but also it's because we want to transition people out and give people opportunity in our shelf, because that's our focus. So.
Well, and in all of those, there is a relationship, and partnerships come in many forms. And unlike everyone else on this panel, Kelly, your store is a passion partnership with another Pittsburgher. And how did you and your business co-owner meet? And what made you decide to go into business together?
It's a funny story. So I grew up here. I lived in New York for about 20 years, had a career as a clothing designer, and I collected fabric because a lot gets wasted in the apparel industry. So I would take the unwanted fabric and I was finding ways to use it. And when I moved back to Pittsburgh about 5 years ago, for personal reasons, I was starting to craft and finding ways to upcycle the fabric, and I was making notebooks. So I was becoming part of the local craft community. And I was randomly at a Pittsburgh Technology Council meeting, and so was Monica, my business partner. And in the sea of technology, she and I found each other and clicked. And one of the things we talked about was we love the local artists in the maker community, and we would love to curate a shop featuring that. And it was just part of something that we bonded on. Several months later, we stayed in touch. She lives in Mount Washington. She had a business called Popcraft, and she was looking for a location for Popcraft, which was pop-up crafting events. Found our first location with that in mind, but then remembered our conversation. And in the end, we just really, with only knowing each other for a few months, took a giant leap because it just felt right in our guts and followed our guts, and opened our first Love Pittsburgh shop with about 40 artists. And now we carry over 100. And yeah, it's a funny story, but I'm so grateful to have a partner through all of this. She couldn't be here tonight, but it's really nice to have someone to be in it together with, supporting each other through all of this. I'm grateful.
That's great. And speaking of pop-ups, when you go onto your online store, a pop-up appears congratulating the site shopper on being a champion of the local. Why, you explained how you met, but why specifically did you and Monica decide to go into the business of championing the local?
We just saw the crazy amount of talent in Pittsburgh and just thought it was so important because we both had corporate careers. I mean, I worked for big companies in New York. She worked for Heinz, and it just felt like karmically just to go hyper local and do things where you're touching everything, everybody, you're promoting, especially in Mount Washington, where there were so many visitors and there wasn't a gift shop, and they were looking for, they're looking for souvenirs, and I just don't even like that word. And we're like, no, we're a gift shop, and everything that we carry is locally made. And we could tell that story over and over again to visitors. And it just feels so good after being in this big, huge world to be in this small, tiny, micro, supportive Pittsburgh world.
And you mentioned fashion. Both you and Monica are makers yourselves. Do you see what you're currently doing as an extension of your art practices?
Yeah, definitely. Monica makes these cute little felt pierogi ornaments that like sell out as soon as they hit the store. So it's like, so it started as a labor of love that she would do in like a pop crafting kind of way. And now it's a bestseller in the store. So she'll be like, okay, I got to get some jingle bells and make some of my pierogi ornaments. And my fabric collection, I love pulling like a color story or a theme and then making a notebook mini assortment based on some kind of inspiration that I have. So yeah, definitely.
And in your journey together to create a dedicated spot to shop Pittsburgh-based artists, you actually decided to set up 2 spots. Why did you settle into the heart of Mount Washington and in the cultural district of downtown Pittsburgh?
We started in Mount Washington about 3.5 years ago, and maybe about 6 months in, some cultural trust and downtown partnership people came to visit us at our Mount Washington store, and they were like, you should be downtown. So it was serendipity. It was just everything kind of like lining up at the right time. And we love being in the heart of the cultural district. The gallery crawls had been such a blast to be a part of. We really miss them this year, but just the opportunity to be a part of the local community that way and tell the story. Like this year, it's been very quiet, of course, but before that, it's also been just like the right spot for us to be.
And back in the spring, a group of artists and community organizers developed a PG&H Artists Emergency Fund, and many of you donated too. If there had been an emergency relief fund created for small retail outlets, how would each of you used it? What would have gone towards? We'll go beginning with Kelly.
That's a great question. We've talked about doing this and we haven't done it yet. And right now we don't have the financial opportunity to do it, but probably maybe create a program where you could pick an artist and support them in whatever way they needed, in some kind of mentoring way or a packaging way or a product development way, whatever they wanted, but like to fund that person and help them grow. I would love to do something like that.
Trish, what would you have done if you had gotten an emergency relief fund?
I probably, in terms of supporting even emerging artists more, those who are, not really established by any, gallery and really, would like to be introduced to a wider audience, I'd probably spend it in support of them.
And Samantha, you mentioned all the programs that you got to explore during this year. Would you have also used the emergency relief fund for more of those programs, or would you have dedicated it to something else?
Yeah, since we kind of received something similar to that, I don't think I'd change it because it was super impactful to the makers' businesses to get them those funds and people that have never even heard of them before. So they've just got such a better customer base from that program. So, yeah.
Lori, as part of the museum, if you had been able to get a relief fund, what would you have put that towards?
Well, I have to look at things a little bit differently in that, the retail stores within the museums have a mission to actually produce revenue to help the museum fund their programs and their educational outreaches. And so I'm probably going to think a lot closer to home with that answer, in that I probably would have used it to be able to keep all of our part-time staff employed, and, keep a few more people on than we were able to do because we have a little bit different mandate.
As Casey said, we're all broke. So Casey, how would you have used an emergency relief fund if you'd been given one?
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of businesses, I did take advantage of the PPP loan to keep my staff going. And I certainly, like Lori said, would prioritize my staff because we've been, we've taken a hit in terms of how many hours we can work and things like that. But in my dream world, I would create an emergency art services where I could pop over to your house and give you a better Zoom background and be like, here's some art. Look at this amazing local Pittsburgh art. You need it right now because you're going to that. It's not looking good. Let me help you out. So that's that still might happen. We'll see.
I could have used that service tonight.
There's still time for this, Casey. You have to do Zoom backgrounds.
Yes.
Well, the question of advice is frequently asked during these panels, and I'm going to beat our attendees to the punch by asking Trish, on behalf of Contemporary Craft, the longest running regional and national artist retail outlet on this panel, as you said, in operation since 1971, what would be your advice to emerging handcrafted centric stores?
Yeah, I would say that consumer education is key. It was mentioned earlier about, storytelling, telling the artist's story in terms of, how a piece came to market, the time, the craftsmanship that's involved in each piece is just instrumental to really, to a consumer's appreciation, of that piece. So I would say consumer education in storytelling, and we try to do that with, we throughout our store have signs about each of the artists and the process. We package a little card about the artist when someone purchases a piece from the store. So we really try to ingrain that information so they really understand it really is a labor of love.
And I'm now going to open it up to said audience. If there are any questions on the nuts and bolts of making a living through the commercial buying and selling of making, please feel free to type it into the Q&A module, which I will be watching, and I will ask our panels any of the questions that you may have. Everyone can take a sip of cocktail, water. Well, I have a question in the meantime while they start to come in. This is filched from Casey, who, beginning November 15th through December 6th, you've been asking Pittsburgh artists on your social media their opinion on the importance of shopping small and supporting local artists. And I'd like to pose that question to everyone here tonight. Your opinion, on this shopping small and supporting local artists.
Alyssa, I'll jump in on that one. I didn't start this idea, but I heard of it, and it sums up the current situation very well. It's like, think about your neighborhood and your community and how you want it to look a year from now. And what do you want to be there a year from now? What small businesses, what restaurants, what shops, make sure they're there, support those places and those people in any way that you can to weather through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say too, with us and just recently moving to the neighborhood, we're on Butler Street, I have to say, the community, has been extremely supportive, Casey included. She's on our street, and she's been great about, recommending people to come and visit, and we do the same likewise. But it's, been great. The community support that we've received has been incredible.
And we do have a question from an attendee: which shops are available for in-person shopping, and who is available to shop online?
Well, if you catch the museums tomorrow, you can still shop in a physical store, but after tomorrow, not until after January the 3rd, but we'll be online. We're figuring out the logistics of how that's going to work right now, but we'll be online throughout that closure that was announced today.
Yeah. And we are open, and we have an online store as well. I'm going to be talking more tomorrow with my team to talk about, any particular nuances, but hopefully we can remain open, over the next few weeks.
We love Pittsburgh. Both of our locations are open. We do have we usually have the door locked, and we ask people to knock because we just want to make sure we're staying at capacity, which is a 4-person limit. And we have our chalet also in Market Square. And we also offer curbside pickup and online shopping.
And Small Mall is open in Upper Lawrenceville and Wilkinsburg. And through the end of the year, we have a pop-up downtown at 922 Penn. We have probably about half of our inventory online for sale. But because a lot of those items are unique, one-of-a-kind items, we do tend to keep those sort of just in person. We are at, we have a limited capacity. We're taking all safety precautions, and we encourage you to come down if you feel comfortable with it, but otherwise feel free to look on our online shop.
And PG&H is also available to open for you shopping in person, and we are also online, although we do not have all of our product on there. For the same reason Casey mentioned, a lot of it's one-off pieces, and we also are trying to pick artists to support online that don't have online shops already, but you can also find a lot of the other artists' direct online shops on our website.
And someone asked, as someone who is not a professional artist or maker, are there reasonable ways to contribute to and engage with the maker community other than as a buyer? Anybody want to take a stab at that one?
I can take that on. Yeah, so if you can give them my email, or I can type it in this chat. If you attend an orientation, the CVA, the Creative Business Accelerator, does a ton of different programs to give you ideas and ways that you can be involved in the community. You should definitely join our orientation.
I think, and also too, we offer classes, that are instructor led, artists by artists. And so if that would be of interest, that's a way to support them too. Is by taking a class.
And I would just say engaging as a hype man for anybody. So if there's an artist you really like, spread the word, tell people about them. It's really invaluable. And you can always reach out to makers and engage them in conversation. They want to know that their work is being received well, and that you like it. And, it's just nice to know that there's an audience out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just to tag on to that too. I mean, I know this is so obvious, but just follow them on social media and give them some love on there too. Just like a little comment, I really love your work, on a post like that. Those little things do go a long way.
Absolutely. And Sam, you mentioned email. There was a question that came in. Would it be possible to get an email address for each of you so we can contact you? I will leave that up to my panelists if they feel comfortable sharing their email, just typing it in the chat function for this question that came in. But let's see, as the moderator, I just want to say thank you to our audiences for choosing amongst all of the virtual happenings in the midst of this holiday season. Thank you for spending your evening with us. And speaking of holiday season, I would not be a moderator on a small business panel worth their salt if I didn't close this program with all of the holiday sales and discounts that are currently running at each of these brick and mortar locations. There are so many things, as they spoke of in the program, that they've done from March till now, but also that they continue to do, and this holiday season is no different. I know that Love Pittsburgh is currently taking part in the downtown window display, and so those ornaments that you see in this image here at the bottom left, they are for sale, $5, and all of that goes to Sisters PG&H. So again, you all are just doing such good work for artists, but also for your fellow organizations that are art-centric. And I just thank each of you, Samantha, Trish, Lori, Casey, and Kelly, for your transparency and honesty on being a small business owner, an important piece. You all are a very important piece to this larger art economy in Pittsburgh. What you do on a day-to-day basis, that is no easy feat, particularly now. And I really do tip my hat to your passion, perseverance, and professionalism. I hope that this entry point into this larger theme of arts and industry in our region that is being celebrated in locally Pittsburgh has inspired all of our attendees to this holiday season thinking about shopping small, because as you all heard, despite Governor Wolf's mandate today, these retail stores, they're still open in one way or another, and they are doing their best to keep you safe, and they would be very grateful if you think about converting to shopping small and buying local, whether that be at Love Pittsburgh, Small Mall, Contemporary Craft, PG&H, or the CMOA store. So thank you all again for being with us this evening, and thank you panelists for your voices and your activism.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right,
Take
you
care.
too. Bye.